Hello, and welcome to our first day of our Reading the Bible in a Year challenge. I hope that today is going well for you. I'm not sure if you're watching this video in the morning or the evening, or you're doing your Bible study work in the morning or the evening, but I encourage you to choose one time a day in which you're doing it so that you can remain consistent. I like to split my day into moments. And so one moment that I have is after my workout. I'm able to spend some time in prayer, and I don't know how you want to do it, but I think that moments are a good thing, and I hope that you get to have your moment with God today. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you're at least somewhat concerned with doing this Bible study, and I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to do this with you. Today's reading was out of Genesis 1 and 2 and Psalm 1, and I just want to shed some light on some kind of beginner theology for Genesis 1 and 2. And what you notice there is you're getting two different creation accounts in Genesis 1 and 2. The first account in Genesis 1 is to develop our theology of a transcendent God. What you recognize in Genesis 1 is God is this very big God. He's able to speak all of creation using just a few words, and things come into motion, into being. I think about entire galaxies being formed with just his wishing it to be so, and the laws of physics are put into motion just by using a couple words, and you get these extremely complex organisms like a honeybee, or even the complexity of your eye. It just comes into being by him speaking it to being. So you get this picture of this God who's so powerful and so big. And that's good for our theology because it allows us to recognize that God isn't like us. He's not like the humans down the street. He's much bigger, and you get these attributes of God of perfection and righteousness and holiness. And so I think it's good for us to recognize that God is transcendent, and he is a really big God, and he's sometimes a mystery to us. I just want to give you a quick story example. My son is getting a bunch of books all the time, and one of the books that we really enjoy is the My First series. It has a bunch of books with different titles concerning things like astronomy or quantum physics. And what you quickly realize reading these books is, yes, I want my son to learn these things, but also if he has any questions one day about any of these things, I won't be able to answer anything about it. And so this God was able to create all of the laws of nature and principles out there and all the complex organisms, and is able to do it by just speaking it into being. How mysterious must he be if we're still searching for some of the answers to the complexities of this universe? How complex is that God? And so by reading Genesis 1, it might leave you with the feeling that God is really big and kind of scary. And Genesis 2 gives you a completely different feeling, because while Genesis 1 gives you a transcendent God, Genesis 2 presents God as immanent, or among us. And what you see is this beautiful characteristic of God where God actually walks among his creation. He talks to his creation, and he actually responds to it. He's moved by it, right? This unmoved God is actually moved by his creation. It's a completely crazy paradigm what's going on, and it's so cool that God allows himself to be seen in that way, that he's moved by his creation. One reason why this is cool, and we'll get more into temples later, but temples ought to be brought up here, and that temples will be later seen as a place on earth that is a building in which God and man are able to connect with one another. It's where heaven and earth are able to meet. But what you realize is in Genesis 2, it sets the whole world as God's temple, and especially the garden. It's a place where God roams among his creation, and God and man are able to have conversation with one another. They're able to commune with one another. And what's really cool about this is God not only communes with us and has a space with us, but he also entrusts us to work that temple. He sets us up as kings, priests, and prophets. We have dominion over the earth were to work and keep the garden. This is in Genesis 1:28 and 2:15. You get the description of the work that man is supposed to be doing. And these are roles that we'll see later in the temple. And so what's really cool is you're having this temple-like experience there in the Garden of Eden. And it's a place where we're able to walk with God. We're able to experience God. And so I think while Genesis 1 presents this transcendent God, and that's absolutely true, it's also absolutely true that God's original intent for his creation is that he might walk among us, that we might have a shared experience with him. And I think that that can encourage our hearts, and I hope it encourages your heart, that you have a God that, yes, is powerful and mysterious and deserves our worship. And we also have a God that deserves our worship because he loves us and he wants to walk among us. And so, in closing reflection, I ask you these two questions. When do you feel God immanent, and when do you feel his transcendence? I know for me, I feel close to God when I'm in a worship service, especially when singing like old hymns and in these old pews, because it sends me back to the days of my youth, back when I was young, because that's what we worshiped like. And I just remember feeling the presence of God so clearly. And so, sometimes colors or songs bring you to these places in which you felt God so closely. And what I feel is transcendence is when I'm sitting by a lake, looking at the vastness of God's creation and his beauty. And so I ask you to reflect on those things and give him a shout of praise today. And I praise you for reading the Bible. Hopefully we can stick through it. I know I will. And let's keep each other accountable, So feel free to comment on this video where you feel God transcendent, where you feel him immanent, when you feel him close to you, and when you feel the mystery of him, the bigness of him. And I hope to see you in the next one. That'd be great.